On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what do we have in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, we've got a particularly exciting show for you today, featuring the world's tiniest dinosaur, a strange animal picked up by a trail cam somewhere in Texas, and there's other stuff as well. I can't remember what it was. Enjoy.
I really like the old credits.
And now, it's Gwen Dibley's Pearls of Wisdom.
An inexperienced physician makes a lumpy churchyard.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of On the Track. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and every Saturday afternoon at 3 and every Wednesday evening at 6:30 we bring you a whole general mishmash of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality? Well, I think you're probably going to have to ask the dog, but I'm not sure that he knows.
It's over there somewhere. I'm not sure why, but I think the cat's put it there.
And that's probably the best answer you're going to get this week. Certainly the better than anything I could have told you. But let's have a look at what we have for you on the show today. And all three of the main stories here are, once again, courtesy of the lovely Miss Maxine. And I really don't know what I'd do without her. She keeps on sending me very thought-provoking entrances to various rabbit holes. And if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be going down anywhere near as many rabbit holes as I do on this show. So let's look at the first rabbit hole. She sent me this. This story was first written up, or at least first for me written up, by Tim Binnall on the Coast to Coast AM website. And he writes, a peculiar trail cam photo of a mysterious creature caused somewhat of a stir over the weekend after bewildered wildlife officials in Texas shared the picture online and indicated that they could not identify the animal. The strange concession came about this past Thursday when the Benson Rio Grande Valley State Park posted the image on their Facebook page. We're scratching our heads trying to identify this elusive creature, they declared, explaining that the picture was a game camera photo of a mystery animal lurking in the Rio Grande Valley. The department went on to speculate that it could be a new species or an escapee from a nearby zoo before turning the proverbial guessing game over to people on social media. The weird photo quickly went viral, and as one might imagine, spawned all manner of theories as to the nature of the curious critter. Some of the more fantastic suggestions from observers were a capybara, a nutria, a wolverine, two boars moving in opposite directions, and of course the requisite paranormal suspects, including aliens or a chupacabra. That said, amongst the many possibilities put forward by people online, an answer to the mystery seemingly emerged as later in the weekend the department updated their post, marvelling at the attention it had received and indicating that we agree with most of the comments that this is very likely to be an American badger. Well, ladies and gentlemen, out in viewerland, I don't agree at all. Because if you look at this, an American badger, and this, the picture of the creature caught by the trail cam, they are completely the wrong silhouettes. They do not look even slightly similar. First of all, it's almost entirely certain that the picture caught on the trail cam shows two different creatures. Look, here are the two different sets of eye shine. We too have had people suggesting that this creature is a badger, but they were thinking of the European badger, which, like so many other things across the Atlantic, is a far more substantial and weighty creature than its American counterpart.
How dare that limey bastard insult the good old American badger? We must have our revenge and reparations.
And almost immediately, a few miles off Clovelly in the Bristol Channel,
Now will you stop being stupid and get on with the story?
But the interesting thing here is that it is the European badger which, through books like The Wind in the Willows and so many other children's storybooks over the years, has become ingrained in the public consciousness rather than its New World counterpart. I think it's an interesting possibility that the cultural identity of the Eurasian badger being so important that it has spread across the world, at least across the English-speaking world, and quite possibly the Spanish-speaking world as well. I'm not sure whether Wind in the Willows has been translated into Spanish, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it had been. And I think it's quite possible that in the same way as we talked about some weeks ago about the legends of a giant flying snake in Namibia possibly having come to what was then German Southwest Africa, with missionaries who'd come from the German homeland bringing their stories of German flying dragons straight from the ring cycle to what is now Namibia. I think it's quite possible that the image of the Eurasian badger is so strong now that people see an animal that looks vaguely like a Eurasian badger and immediately assume it's a badger, rather than having a look at the badger species which is found in their area, which is completely and utterly different by anybody's metric. So, what is it? I thought it looked a little bit like a hippopotamus, or rather two hippopotami. But although there are hippopotami which are purely African animals, but there are some living wild in, I believe, Colombia, where they escaped when a drug baron's private menagerie was sacked. I think the chances of them having travelled all the way through Central America up to the Mexico-United States border of the Rio Grande is so obscure and so unlikely as to be feasibly impossible. So, what do you think these animals are? I'd be very interested to hear. Please let me know in the comments below. And here is another story from Maxine. It concerns what has been variously described as the smallest dinosaur, a prehistoric bird, or a strange lizard, which was trapped in amber, a piece of amber found in northern Myanmar. The specimen, which has been named as belonging to a species called Oculodentavis cayungradi, was trapped in a piece of amber dated to the middle of the Mesozoic era. This means that between 250 million years ago and 65 million years ago, It was alive and kicking. The skull of the creature is only 7 millimeters long, which makes it as being similar in size to the Zunsatito, which is the smallest species of hummingbird known in the world today. This, according to the journal Nature, would make it the smallest known dinosaur. The study's lead author, Jingma O'Connor, wrote,
"Like all animals trapped in amber, it is very well preserved. We have the impression that it died yesterday, with all its soft tissues preserved in this small window of ancient times."
Well, is it a lizard? Is it a dinosaur? Is it a bird? Well, we can sort out the last two fairly easily, because it's been realized from quite a few years now that birds are actually dinosaurs. What? I hear you say. How can a bird be a dinosaur? But they are. They are descended from a group of theropod dinosaurs called avialans that emerged about 158 million years ago. And when the KT extinction event took place about 66 million years ago and wiped out all the rest of the dinosaurs, the remaining theropod avialans, now known as birds, proliferated wildly. So, there's no argument whether it is a bird or a dinosaur, because birds are dinosaurs. But why do some people think it's a lizard? Well, therein hangs quite an interesting tale. Oculodentavis cyangra is known, as we have seen, from one complete skull preserved in Burmese amber. The skull was found in 2020 at the Angabamo site in Tanai Township, Kachin State, northern Myanmar. The genus name, Oculodentavis, was chosen to include the combination of the words oculus, dentes, and avis. These Latin words translate to eye, teeth, and bird, respectively. The specific name honours Kung Ra, the woman who donated the piece of amber to the Hupoji Amber Museum, which is where it has been ever since. Later that year, an unpublished preprint, subsequently published in the journal Current Biology, attributed a second specimen to the genus. This specimen, which consists of the skull and the front portion of the torso, was found in the same mine as the holotype of O. congrare. It was named as a different species, O. naga, after the local Naga people of Myanmar, who historically played a prominent role in the amber trade. And remember that all across Southeast Asia the word Naga is used not just for the people in Burma, but for snakes and for various species of dragon-like creature. In the year 2000, Richard Freeman went all the way to Thailand with a film crew to make a documentary about the Naga, and he found some magnificent evidence, but we'll talk about that on another day. Specializations caused by the small size of Oculodentavis led to difficulties in making precise conclusions on its classification. A phylogenetic analysis in the original description supports a basal placement for Oculodentavis within the Avialidae, only slightly closer to modern birds than the Archaeopteryx itself. But soon after the publication of the article, a number of paleontologists voiced skepticism on whether Oculodentavis is even a dinosaur. Now, by the way, when it says that they voiced skepticism, that is the way of saying that there was a bloody great academic punch-up between the people who thought it was a dinosaur and the people who thought it wasn't. They thought it wasn't a dinosaur due to a much higher number of similarities with squamates than with theropods. The general skull shape is considered the largest argument in favour of bird affinities, but some living lizards, such as Morolis and Anolis, and various extinct reptiles, are known to have convergently evolved a bird-like skull shape. The usage of a bird-focused phylogenetic analysis, without considering lizards, has also been criticised. See, I told you it was a punch-up. The editors of the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology's Fanpool publication have published an editorial arguing for an interpretation of Oculodentavis as a lizard rather than Avalian. But does it matter? Well, I think it does, and I think it matters not just because it is important to understand as much as we can about the past, or else we won't understand the present, but because so much stuff these days is being dumbed down and cast aside that I find it massively impressive and very reassuring that there are arguments between various groups of paleontologists as to whether this little creature found embedded in amber is a lizard or a dinosaur. Now this next story comes from one of my other regular white rabbits who lead me kicking and screaming down convenient rabbit holes. That actually sounds quite scary, and this particular white rabbit is Mark Rains, who's not at all scary. He's a dear fellow, and I've known him for years, and we love him very much. Thank you for this story, Mark. I've always been a fan of amphibians, and I have kept various species over the past 60 years, being lucky enough to breed several of them. So you'll be surprised to hear that I am saying that this new species of frog from New Guinea is shit. Well, it's not quite shit, but it looks like shit. Have a look at this. Scientists have discovered a new frog species that disguises itself as crap. The new study describes Littoria nispala as being camouflaged to look like bird droppings in order to ward off hungry predators. The quirky amphibian joins 4 other new species of frog uncovered in Papua New Guinea by Australian scientists. Researchers from the South Australian Museum, Queensland Museum and Griffith University located the frogs in very wet mountain forest areas along the central mountain range of New Guinea. The 5 new species are named Littoria dariensis, Littoria gracilis, Littoria hymetoclasta, Littoria lysii and Littoria nispita. Lead author and South Australian Museum honorary researcher Dr. Steve Richards collected the information on the 5 frogs over a period of 30 years.
I spend a huge amount of time waiting at night beside tree holes in rain, hail and moonshine for frogs to emerge in order to find these amazing species.
Richards says in a media release. He went on to describe how New Guinea has more species of frogs than any other island in the world, and how most are found nowhere else. New discoveries like this show that this richness of species is also matched by a diverse set of ways in which these little creatures can make a living as a frog. Tadpoles of this new species, Littoria nispala, actually live in water collected in tree hollows, a behaviour not previously documented in frogs from New Guinea. It's assumed that the colour and patterning of the juveniles that closely resembles bird droppings is a form of defensive masquerade. And I can't think of anything to argue with that. What a fantastic creature, and how wonderful Mother Nature is.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell, or else you won't be told when the next show's going to be.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another show. I hope you enjoyed it. But before I go on with the credits, I just want to tell you that because of King Charles and Queen Camilla's coronation, there won't be an episode of the show next week.
John, young people need the show. We don't need a coronation. We already have coronation chicken. That's all the coronation we need. Oh, that's good in a £3 meal deal at Tesco's, except they made it like £3.90 now and it's a rip-off. But anyway, I digress. Hello, I want the show.
Hello, I'm Hennis, the coronation chicken, and I am going to single-handedly do a show for you all next week. Next Saturday afternoon there will be some specially selected bits from some of the on-the-track extras which, for one reason or another, nobody much watched, and they will be put together into a special bumper episode for your delectation.
Well, thank you very much, Hennis, for single-handedly saving the show. I'm not going to be doing one next week, but I will be around in the live chat at 3 o'clock to join in with you and Hennis and young Master Louis and V and all the other people who are always in on the live chat, and we are going to be celebrating Hennis's remarkable first show of his coronation chicken range. Now, I also want to say a big thank you to everyone but for whom I wouldn't have been able to do the show. So first of all, young Master Louis. Say something, young Master Louis.
What is up, my party people?
Goodness me, I think you're twisting my melon, man. And I want to say a big thank you to Graham Inglis, who, as well as being Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, is also my old friend and my carer. And he pushes me around hospitals in my wheelchair when we have to go and do things that are arcane with my feet. And I want to say a big thank you to 3 other people who are looking after me all the time and making my life considerably better. That's Miss Judy, Miss Karen and Miss Gwyn. And I want to say thank you to my white rabbits who pushed me down rabbit holes this week. And this week my white rabbits were Miss Maxine and Mark Rains. I'm going to be back on Wednesday, and no, don't ask what's going to be in Wednesday's show because I haven't a clue. It'll be by me, not by Hennis, but I'm not going to even attempt to tell you what's going to be in it. You're just going to have to wait and see. And I'll be back watching next Saturday's show, but as we've already heard, it's a show put together by Hennis, not by me. So, all I can say now, are you ready, Mr. McCrinnan? Is what I say every Saturday. Are you listening, Mr. McCrinnan? That because, as everybody knows, the only reason I do this show is so every Saturday afternoon Mr. McCrinnan can call along with me when I say, I'll be seeing you.